So the other day, I saw a video where someone played Tower Defense X with shaders, so I thought to myself, what if I did the same thing with TDS? In this challenge, your graphics quality increases by 1 every time you complete a match. As you increase your graphics quality, the modes get harder and the skins get better. But there's also a catch. I asked you guys to send me things to post depending on how many losses I get, and let me tell you, some stuff there is pretty terrifying. So for game 1, I knew I had to lock in. I was only allowed 1 intermediate tower and 1 advanced tower, so I brought Pyromancer for its decent crowd control, and Minigunner to kill the Grave Digger. Other than that, I brought Scout, Sniper, and Demo Man. I chose Cataclysm since it's a pretty forgettable map. I placed Demo Man as early game, but that was a pretty bad decision, which forced me to place Scouts to clean up. I then got a Pyromancer on wave 6, and that helped a lot, barely allowing me to kill the boss on wave 8. After that, I upped my defense by getting a level 2 minigunner and a couple snipers. From there it was smooth sailing, and I spammed minigunners while I waited for the Grave Digger to spawn. Eventually, he spawned, and I started spamming Scouts for some reason. This decision I made ended up with me leaking the Grave Digger, but after selling and replacing my minigunners, I secured victory, completing the first game. After that win, I was feeling confident, but I knew I couldn't rest easy, since there were much harder bosses I had yet to face. For game 2, I was still only allowed 1 intermediate tower and 1 advanced tower. Since this was Molten mode, I chose Farm, since I like money, and Minigunner, with the green skin, which was actually the first skin I ever got, for DPS. Other than that, I chose Scout with the blue skin, Demo Man with the green skin, and Soldier with the blue skin. For the map, I chose Night Station, since it's also a pretty forgettable map. I used Soldier as early game, which defended easily while also allowing me to farm up to wave 10, where I got a minigunner to kill the boss. Once I got my minigunner to level 2 to deal with hiddens, I upgraded all my farms to level 3. Once I was done, I spammed minigunners, and I was destroying everything in my way. Until the Molten boss spawned. He stunned constantly, and I ended up leaking him at about a Grave Digger of HP. Now, to a normal person, this wouldn't sound bad. But since I had my reputation on the line, this was the most stressful moment of my life, and the fact that he was spawning a ton didn't help either. But after selling and replacing my minigunners, just like last time, I secured victory, winning the second game. And since the next game was the same mode with an extra intermediate and advanced tower, the next game was even easier, meaning I could move on to intermediate. For game 4, I was very nervous, since I didn't know intermediate's wave structure very well. But after watching a few videos, I was feeling confident. I was allowed 3 intermediate towers and 3 advanced towers, so I brought Commander, with the red skin, for its fire rate buff, and Mercenary Base for its high damage output. Other than that, I brought Crook Boss with the blue skin, Pyromancer, and Shotgunner. For the map, I chose Nether, as I remember playing it once all the way back in 2019. I spammed Shotgunners early, which allowed me to kill the boss on wave 7 pretty easily. I got a Pyromancer on wave 10, which helped clear the hordes of enemies. I then got all my Crook bosses down, which allowed me to kill the Necromancer on wave 14. On wave 16, a living experiment sneaked past my Crook bosses with only a third of its health left, but Crook boss's goons finished him off. After that, I got 3 level 2 commanders down and started chaining. After that, I got all my mercenary bases down, which, thanks to its high damage output, carried me through the rest of the game, and I killed Patient Zero with relative ease, winning game 4. Game 5 was even easier, as I brought Militant, with the duck skin, and thanks to a scrapped video of mine, I knew exactly what to do to win. I wasn't gonna cover this game, but something really weird happened. After a while, Militant would just stop playing its shooting animation, which was really funny. Once I got into the late game and started maxing Militants, instead of the vibrant red at max level, it just turned into this weird gray. Nothing else was bugged though, and with the help of DJ and Commander, we shredded Patient Zero, moving on to Fallen mode. But before we move on, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Rogue Or. It's time for Game 6. This was a major step up from Game 5, as Fallen mode was much more difficult and required much more concentration, so I was allowed an extra advanced tower. I brought Elf Camp, since it would be useful in each stage of the game. Now, you may be wondering why I'm bringing an event tower, which isn't advanced, but I count all exclusive towers as advanced towers, since they're mediocre at best. Other than that, I brought Minigunner, with the Hazmat skin, for DPS, as well as DJ and Commander, with the red skin, to support my minigunners. I also got Farm, with the duck skin, since I would need it for money. I chose Wrecked Battlefield, which is infamous for being the hardcore map everyone plays, although Crossroads is starting to take its place. I used Elf Camp as early game, which worked quite well. I farmed until Wave 9, where I got a minigunner to kill the boss on Wave 10. I then got all my farms to level 3. Once I was done, I got a level 3 DJ, then got as many level 3 minigunners as I could for Wave 20, and with the help of Commander, we cleared the Fallens. From there, I started maxing farms, but I only could get 4 of them maxed, since I was preparing for the tank, which got pretty far along the path before dying. After that, I maxed all my farms, got a max DJ, then started spamming max minigunners. But by Wave 37, I didn't have many down, and I was starting to wonder if I was going to have enough DPS to even kill the Fallen Guardians. But the high HP enemies gave me tons of money, and the future was looking bright. Until Wave 40. I took the Fallen Guardians out pretty comfortably, and I started shredding the Fallen King. But the Fallen King stomped, which allowed him to get way too far down the path. He went into rage mode, but he stomped shortly after. At this point, he was out of the range of most of my minigunners, and things were looking grim. But I couldn't give up yet. Thanks to my APCs, I lowered him to 10k HP. He stomped, but it was too late, and I killed him right before he got in the base, completing Game 6. And since I was allowed a hardcore tower for Game 7, which was Engineer with the Ducky skin, I shredded the Fallen King, which meant I could move on to P. It's time for Game 8. This game mode was much harder than Fallen, being one of the 3 special game modes, so I was allowed 2 hardcore towers, which were Brawler to deal with early game, and Engineer, with the Ducky skin, for DPS. Other than that, I brought Farm with the Christmas skin, Commander with the Ducky skin, and Ranger with the Partisan skin. I also brought a partner, who brought Accelerator, DJ, Farm, Mortar, and Medic. For early game, I placed Brawlers, and their high damage and knockback allowed us to take out the boss on Wave 10. Later on, my teammate placed an Accelerator, and I continued farming. While I was farming, my teammate maxed their DJs and placed more accelerators. Wave 28 was surprisingly easy, since my teammate had gotten a level 4 mortar. Once I had maxed my farms, I started placing engineers, which shredded the following waves, and I knew Wax the Fox stood no chance. On Wave 40, he spawned, but 250,000 isn't very much against 8 max accelerators, 6 max engineers, for max mortars, and 6 max rangers, so we shredded him, completing Game 8. For Game 9, I was very nervous, since Badlands was way harder than Pizza Party. I wanted to get in a trio, but the only person I could get was Rogue Ordinary, the sponsor of this video. For this game, I was now allowed 1 golden tower, so I chose Golden Minigunner, with the Squeaking skin, since it helps out a lot in the mid-game. Other than that, I brought Farm with the Christmas skin, Engineer with the Wikia skin, Medic, and Pursuit. I was going to bring Ranger, but Rogue said we didn't need it, which proved to be a terrible mistake later on. Rogue brought Engineer, Frost Blaster, Gladiator, DJ, and Farm. I farmed for the first few waves, while Rogue focused on placing Gladiators. On Wave 8, I placed down a Minigunner, which allowed us to take down the 3 bosses on Wave 10. After that, I was maxing my farms, as well as giving Rogue some very motivating words. Rogue got maxed Gladiators to deal with the Husks on Wave 20, which are basically just reskinned Fallens, and I maxed out my farms. From there, I went on autopilot and spammed max engineers, which not only shredded the enemies, but also bored them to death. On Wave 30, the tanks didn't even make it to the intersection. and I was feeling pretty confident, since Engineer does heaps of DPS. But on wave 40, everything changed. We could barely take out the cavalries, and once we finally did, the gunslinger was already at the fork of the path with only a fourth of its health gone, so I knew we would die. And with about a fallen king of HP left, the gunslinger hit us with about 140,000 DPS of his own, losing game 9. After this loss, I was on edge, because if I lost one more game, I would have to post that. And the bosses only got harder from here. For game 10, my hands were literally shaking, so as you could imagine I was very nervous. I was still allowed only one golden tower, so I brought none of them. Instead, I brought Farm, with the graveyard skin, Accelerator with the vigilante skin, Engineer with the holiday skin, Medic with the masquerade skin, which may be one of my favorite skins, and Commander with the holiday skin. I tried to get a team of 4, but I could only get a team of 3, and I had already learned my lesson from that, so I tried matchmaking. After re-rolling a few times, I got a good team. For early game, I farmed, while my teammates placed golden soldiers and shotgunners to defend. On wave 9, I got an accelerator, and it steamrolled through the next few waves, allowing me to farm even more. On wave 22, the amalgamation spawned, but our rangers and multiple accelerators killed him before he even passed the first loop. The rushers almost made it to our base, but I had just finished farming, and I got as much DPS as I could, and from there it was smooth sailing. Until wave 40. All of a sudden, the player in charge of commanders left the game, but he rejoined shortly after. Our raw DPS was unmatched, and we managed to kill the nuclear monster before he even got past the second loop, winning game 10. Now there was only one game mode left. Hardcore. For game 11, I got 2 people from my server, and we beat the game. Except for one problem. My recording ran at about 3 minutes per frame, which I never actually noticed until I was editing this video. So, for game 12, I got a new team. This was even more intense, because if I lost this game, I would have to post something even worse, so I locked in. For early game, Minty got Ace Pilot, and me and Pro Gamer farmed. On wave 10, I got a golden pyromancer to kill the invisibles, which worked pretty well. Pro Gamer got an accelerator for the mega slow on wave 19. I was really worried we would die on wave 25, since that was the main game ender for most people, but we barely managed to kill the shadow bosses, and I knew we had secured victory. We spammed accelerators, and the grave digger got shredded. But the lead balloons almost killed us, so Pro Gamer got a mortar, which helped a lot, and from there it was a beeline to the final wave. On wave 50, we quickly killed the Vindicators, and we started focusing on the Void Reaver. He got to his third phase pretty quickly, but since I was too busy recording footage, I had not noticed that our towers were stunned. This blunder allowed the Void Reaver to get way past our towers with a decent amount of health, and I was mentally preparing myself to upload that image. But right before he reached the base, our rangers sniped him, winning game 12 and ending the challenge.